Patient, Bruce Wayne. Presenting problem.
Don't touch anything, say anything, or do anything unless I tell you. Got it? Where's the trigger?
Diagnosis? Oh boy.
The one who knocks.
I don't have an addictive personality.
Hello, I'm Willarius the Therapist. I analyze characters in movies, TV shows, and video games to see what their mental health diagnosis would be. And today at the Fictional Character Mental Health Co-op, we're diagnosing the Dark Knight, the patient we deserve, but definitely don't want. Now, truth be told, Mr. Wayne is an enigma wrapped in a mystery dressed as a bat. I'd be talking about him for the rest of my life if I were to go into everything diagnosable in the 80-year history of the Dark Knight. So in this series, I'm going to be limiting myself to the Christopher Nolan movie trilogy. You know, the 3 movies that rescued us from this and brought credibility back to the franchise before things went back downhill. Yeah. Now, if you had to bet $50 as to what Bruce Wayne's primary diagnosis would be, you would probably guess PTSD. I mean, unless you really hate one. According to the DSM-5, in order to have a diagnosis of PTSD, a person needs to experience a distressing traumatic event and, as a result of the event, have long-term problems with 4 distinct categories of disruptive symptoms. These symptoms are re-experiencing symptoms, cognitive symptoms, avoidance symptoms, and hyperreactivity. Now, it's pretty typical in portrayals of Batman for the main story to be him dealing with his trauma. However, what I think makes Nolan's series unique is that in Batman's journey through the 3 films, Bruce Wayne processes his trauma by confronting and defeating representations of the 4 symptom categories of his PTSD. And these representations tell us a lot about how PTSD looks, particularly when it's in men. Let's start at the beginning. Batman Begins outlines the origin story of Bruce Wayne. He has the misfortune of being a sensitive young boy in the worst city in the history of cities, but has the fortune of being the silver spoon son of a CEO with a huge fortune. That is until they ran into Joe Chill. Fast forward to his adulthood, and we see a man who is emotionally distant from loved ones and unable to focus on school. We see that he has become singularly concerned with getting revenge. Looking at the desire for revenge in the context of his PTSD, this would be the hyperreactivity quadrant. Hyperreactivity refers to a constant state of negative emotions that occurs as a result of the trauma. In the rare instances where Bruce opens up emotionally, you see that underneath his anger, he has experienced a range of emotions related to his trauma.
It was my fault, Alfred. I made them need to live. If I hadn't gotten scared.
My anger outweighs my guilt. Someone at this proceeding should stand for my parents.
But the only one he ends up expressing is anger. What Bruce is displaying is what the Gottman Institute has termed the anger iceberg. So called because, like an iceberg, anger is just the emotion that's the most apparent part of a complex group, this group being more vulnerable and raw emotions. Also like an iceberg, if you're not aware of it, it can wreck your life hard. This is because all the person is expressing is anger, which is all that their environment can respond to, and this ends up pushing people away, making it difficult for them to relate to other people. Statistically, men are more likely to display the anger iceberg in response to trauma. And this is what is happening to Bruce in Batman Begins. All of his guilt, fear, shame, and sadness are pushed into rage. Festering, boiling, uncontrollable rage. A maladaptive anger that gets him thrown out of school, thrown out of the club, and thrown out of jail. He's too angry for jail. But in the midst of his anger, he meets someone who is everything his hyperreactivity wishes that he could be, Ra's al Ghul. In him, he finds someone who is just as angry as he is because of a traumatic past. Bruce's desire for revenge is frustrated by Gotham's corruption and the restraints of society. Ra's al Ghul is completely removed from civilization and is free to make his own rules. There is nothing stopping Ra's al Ghul's hyperreactivity from doing whatever it wants. Bruce is able to see in Raz's League of Shadows what it looks like when his anger iceberg is unchecked. At first, he looks up to this man, believing that the freedom to go after vengeance is what he wants. Then he begins to see the truth about Raz and himself.
Your anger gives you great power, but if you let it, it will destroy you. As it almost did me.
What stopped it?
Vengeance.
Did you catch that? Here, let's play that scene again with less elegant language. Bro, I feel like I'm gonna lose it. I've been there. What'd you do about it? I kill people on the regular. You should try it. If you can look past Liam Neeson's silky smooth delivery, you realize that you're looking at the candid confession of a very disturbed man. By his own admission, Raz has become psychologically dependent on vengeance. He's not really mission-oriented anymore. He needs violence to maintain whatever mental balance he has left after years of indulging his anger iceberg. Like any other form of psychological dependence, he needs more vengeance to have the same fleeting sense of satisfaction. He has escalated from getting revenge on an individual to wasting entire cities in the name of his self-righteous rage. He will never chop off enough heads to be free of his pain. And it's through Ra's al Ghul that Bruce realizes the flaw in what his anger has been telling him. He's not just angry, he's hurt. He's hurt because someone who was so caught up in meeting their own needs without concern hurt him and his family. He realizes that if he swears undying loyalty to his anger and thirst for retribution, he'll betray himself, his vulnerable inner child that feels all of those raw emotions that he did not want to acknowledge before. So, he then takes a different path. He punches the representation of his hyperreactivity in the face and allows him to fall into a building, as is recommended by the American Psychological Association, and now can become Batman, a mission-oriented hero who can use his anger instead of having his anger use him. And thus, our patient completes his first part of the treatment plan. Now on to phase 2. Subscribe to Hilarious Pop Culture Psychology and ring the notification bell to see my next analysis video about the man who laughs. If you'd like to go further down the character diagnosis rabbit hole, click here to learn how we treated the Incredible Hulk's anger problems. Or click on this video to learn more about the psychology of personality. Don't forget to like this video and share with other pop culture psychologists as we expand our treatment team here at the Fictional Character Mental Health Co-op. And be sure to tell us what you think about the diagnosis in the comments below. This is Hilarious. Thanks for watching.